So now after the card has flipped to the left or the right, the next step is we want to be able to have card 1 animate back to the center. So we have the appearance that we're cycling through a series of cards, so however many cards are in the session. So we've always got another card coming in to the middle of the screen when a card is being swiped away to the left or the right. So we can set that up by going back to Flashcards notifier and creating another variable. So we have another ball, and this will be slide card 1. We'll set this to false. So therefore, we have 2 balls for card 1 and 2 balls for card 2. So these 4 variables will control the 4 types of animation. So we'll just create another method to work with this new slide card 1 variable. So run slide card 1, and here this will set slide card 1 to true, and then we should notify listeners. So now we firstly still want card 1 to slide to the center of the screen when the session starts. So because we've set this to false, we now need to set this to true when the session starts. So a good place to do that is if we go to Flashcards page, and in the init state, so the init state will run just once when we set up the session. So this is a good place to use provider.of. This will be of type flashcards notifier. We'll set the listen property to false, and that is because we just want to call a method. We do not want to listen to value changes, and then we'll call run slide card 1. And we're in the init state, so we cannot just use provider here. So to get around this, we can write widgets binding .instance add post frame callback. So by the time this callback runs, we will have an instance of a build context, and provider will run smoothly. Otherwise, if we don't wrap it, we'll get an exception. Okay, so now we're calling run slide card 1 when the session first starts. Now we also want to call this whenever we swipe to the left or right. So we'll jump into card 2, and this is a good place to call it because when we swipe left or right, we should also be having card 1 slide into position. So notifier dot run slide card 1, copy this and paste it here. Okay, now we need to apply the actual animation. So now we need to update the slide animation in card 1. So we'll go to animate, use this property here. So this will determine when we should slide card 1 from the bottom to the center of the screen. So again, we will use notifier to listen to our flashcards notifier, and here we can select slide card 1. So when this turns true, this will run the animation, and it will always run in this direction, so we can just have that hard coded in here. Okay, so now let's see how that looks. We'll do a hot restart. Okay, cool. So card 1 is animating into the center, sliding up. Flip that around. Now let's flick that off to the left. So that's being swiped away. But card 1 is not animating back to the center. So to get this to run, we need to be able to reset our animation so it can rerun when we want it to. So we'll go back to Flashcards notifier, and I'm going to create another series of balls. So we'll just name these reset slide card 1. We'll set that to false. Reset flip card 1. We'll set that to false. Reset flip card 2. Set that to false. And reset swipe card 2 and set that to false. So essentially what we're doing here is just creating a way to reset the animation when we want it to. So each of these variables just has a corresponding reset variable. So here, every time we run one of these animations, the reset should be set as false. So we'll update reset slide card 1 should be set as false. Okay, so every time we run one of these animations, our reset value should be set as false. And now we want this to turn true when we want the animation to be reset. So now we're going to create a method that can reset card 1 and reset card 2. So here we just set reset slide card 1 to true and reset flip card 1 to true, and also on the same note slide card 1 is false and flip card 1 is false. So when we reset card 1, slide card 1 and flip card 1 will go back to their default values, and we'll set reset to true, which will reset the animation as well. And we don't need to call notify listeners here, because we don't need to notify at that point in time that we've updated these variables. And we will do the same for card 2. So the same idea, reset flip card 2 to true, reset swipe card 2 is true, and flip card 2 is false, so back to its original value, and slide card and swipe card 2 is also back to false. So granted this looks a little bit complicated at the moment, but essentially we just have the 4 key parts of the animation. We can reset those 4 key parts of the animation so they can run again, and then we have 4 methods to run those animations, and we can also reset card 1 and reset card 2. So let's finish this off and it will become a bit clearer. Firstly, if we go to slide animation, we need to update this animation so we can reset it. So we'll create another ball. We'll make this a nullable type and we'll name this reset. And then down here in did update widget, we want to be able to reset the animation. So if widget dot reset is true, and because it's a nullable type, we'll need to say this is equal to true. So if it's not null or false, then animation controller is reset. And then we need to have this as a parameter up here. So this dot reset. And lastly, we'll also set up a listener so we can be notified when the animation has completed. So again, we'll use a callback. So void callback, animation completed. So this will run a callback when the animation has completed. We'll make this a nullable type too, so it does not need to be passed in. Makes this widget more reusable. Now to set up our listener, cascade notation, 2 dots, add listener. And now we can listen to the controller. So if the animation controller is completed, so now when the animation controller has completed, that means the animation has finished. So we can write widget dot animation completed and call that method that's passed in, but only if we have passed in a method. So we use the null operator here. So if this is null, we do not call a method because nothing has been passed in. Okay, so this will notify us when the animation has completed. So we need to add this as a parameter up here too. This dot animation completed. Okay, cool. So that is done. So now we need to update our code on card 1 and card 2. And then we can test everything out. So in card 1, the first thing that we want to do is reset card 1 when we have flipped it halfway. Because at that point in time, it is flipped halfway, it's done all of its animation, and we can reset it back. So we'll write notifier dot reset card 1. Because at that point in time, it has slid up to the center of the screen, its first animation, then done its second animation where it's flipped halfway around, and then we can reset it here. And instead of just writing in false here, we can write notifier dot reset flip card 1. So when this turns true, we reset the animation. Now down in slide animation, we now have a reset property. So here we can update this to write notifier dot reset slide card 1, so we can reset the slide animation when this turns true. Okay, so card 1 we have updated. Let's go to card 2, and here in card 2 we basically want to do the same thing. So for reset we'll go notifier dot reset flip card 2. I'll remove that print function, but at the moment we can leave the function body blank. Then finally down here in slide animation, we want to set reset. So again, notifier dot reset swipe card 2. And when the slide animation has completed for card 2, we have a callback now. So animation completed, and now we have a callback we can run. And here we can select reset card 2, because after card 2 has slid away to the left or the right, that card's animation sequence has completed, so it can restart from the beginning again when we want it to. Okay, let's test this and see how it looks. We will do a hot restart. So card 1 comes up, slides to the center of the screen, double tap it. Now let's swipe that away. Cool, and now another card has animated into that position, double tap. Let's swipe it in the other direction. Cool, and another card comes into place. So the flashcards are syncing well, but there's one small issue, and that is we can sort of muck around with the cards when they're in the middle of animating. So we want to prevent the user from being able to interfere with the animation. So once they've made a selection, we want to then prevent them from essentially being able to disrupt the sequence of how everything's running. So what we can do is use the ignore pointer widget to prevent touches during certain parts of the animation. So let's set that up. So first of all, we'll go to Flashcards page, and we can set the ignore pointer here. So we'll wrap the stack with an ignore pointer widget. So we're just preventing touches on the cards. The app bar can still be interacted with. And here we have an ignoring property. When that is set to true, we'll ignore touches. So I'll update this shortly. But first, let's create a variable that can turn the ignore pointer on or off. So in Flashcards notifier, we'll create a variable of type bool, and we'll name this ignore touches, and we'll set this to true, because when the first card animates in, we don't want to interfere with that until it has animated into position. And then we'll create a method, set ignore touch, and we'll pass in a bool. So this argument will set our ignore touches variable. Just name this ignore. And then ignore touches will be set to the value of ignore. And we will call notify listeners. Alright, so now we have a way to stop the user from interfering with the card. So let's apply that where we want to. So first of all, when the card starts flipping around, it's been double tapped, we want to prevent touches. So we'll go to card 1, and we have on double tap. So inside this function, we can write notifier dot set ignore touch and pass in true. So while the card is flipping around, we want to prevent touches. So card 1 will flip, then card 2 will flip. So when card 2 has completed its animation, we can then set it so the user can touch the card. So we can write notifier dot set ignore touch to false. So here in card 2, on the animation completed callback inside of half flip animation, we can set ignore touch to false. Okay, so the card has then flipped around. The next stage is it can be swiped to the left or right. So once it's been swiped, we want to set this ignore touch back to true again. So just up here, this is where the card is swiped left or right. We can just pass in true. So once it's been swiped left or right, the next stage is card 1 will animate back into the center. So we'll go back to card 1, and here we have an animation completed, callback. So this function will run when the slide has completed. So notifier, set ignore touch, and this will turn to false. So this is after card 1 has animated from the bottom to the center of the screen. We can then set ignore touch to false. Then back in Flashcards page, inside ignore pointer, we'll update the ignoring property. So we can set this to notifier dot ignore touches. So this will turn true or false, turning ignore pointer on or off. Okay, and before we run this, I'm going to go to the animation and speed this up. So this is the slide animation. So let's make that a bit faster, a lot faster. We'll make that 600 milliseconds, and also update our flip. So let's update that to, say, 300 milliseconds. Okay, so now hot restart. Okay, so it has slid into position, double tap. Okay, so that's spun around. That looks quite good at that speed. Flick that to the side. I've tried to interfere. We cannot upset that animation. And cool, that spins away. So now this will work, and we can keep cycling through as many cards as we want. So what we'll do next is update the cards so they actually display the words based on the topic that was selected. So here we'll have the English, and on the reverse side it'll show the Chinese.